Hi, my name is Natalie, and I'm about to share a story that even I find hard to explain. I've been married to James for 8 years. Our relationship was always solid, or so I thought. It all began one evening when James started coming home late. At first, I didn't think much of it. Work deadlines, extra projects, his excuses seemed reasonable, at least for a while. But then I noticed subtle changes. His cologne smelled different, and he seemed lighter somehow. I wasn't naive. A woman's intuition is powerful, and deep down, I knew something was happening. One night, as he stepped out to meet a client, I decided to follow him. My heart was racing. I kept a safe distance as he drove to a restaurant across town. That's when I saw her. She was beautiful, confident, and her laugh echoed through the air as she leaned into him. Instead of feeling anger, I felt intrigued. The way he looked at her was different. James seemed alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. There was a spark I didn't recognize. I drove home that night confused by my own reaction. Shouldn't I be furious? Heartbroken? Instead, I felt an odd sense of curiosity, a strange excitement I couldn't explain. The next morning, I watched James get ready for work. He kissed me goodbye, as he always did. But now, I found myself wondering, what did she see in him? What did he see in her? I began to notice every detail about James, the way he smiled, the way he carried himself. It was as if I was seeing him through her eyes, and it made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Desire, not just for him, but for the excitement, the mystery, the unknown. I didn't confront him. Instead, I allowed things to continue, watching from the sidelines. And the more I saw, the more I realized that I enjoyed it. The thrill, the secrecy, the forbidden. One evening, James came home later than usual. His tie was slightly loosened, his hair disheveled. I greeted him with a smile, pretending not to notice the faint lipstick stain on his collar. "How was your day?" I asked casually, pouring him a glass of wine. He looked at me, slightly startled. "It was fine," he replied, his voice hesitant. "Busy, as always." I nodded, hiding my smirk. Over the next few weeks, I began playing my own little game. I started dressing differently, more bold, more daring. I watched as James noticed, his eyes lingering on me longer than they had in years. He didn't realize that I knew about his affair, but I wasn't angry. In fact, I felt empowered. I had always been the dutiful wife, the one who kept everything in order. Now, I was something else entirely. One night, while he was out, I decided to visit the same restaurant where I had first seen them together. I didn't plan to confront them, I just wanted to see, to understand what drew him to her. As I walked in, my heart raced. There they were, sitting at a corner table, laughing softly. For a moment, I felt a pang of jealousy, but it was quickly replaced by something else, admiration. She was stunning, confident, and had an air of independence that was intoxicating. I sat at the bar, unnoticed, and watched. The way she leaned in when she spoke, the way he smiled at her. It wasn't just about attraction. It was about connection, something I hadn't felt with James in years. When I returned home that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it, about them, about us. The next morning, I decided to confront James, not out of anger, but out of curiosity. As he drank his coffee, I asked, "Do you love her?" The question caught him completely off guard. He stared at me, his face pale. "What are you talking about?" He stammered, trying to compose himself. "I know about her," I said calmly. "And I'm not angry, James. I just want to understand." James placed his cup down, his hands trembling slightly. "How long have you known?" he asked softly. "For a while," I replied, my tone steady. "But that's not what matters. I want to know why." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and relief. I don't know," he admitted. "It just happened. She made me feel alive again, like I was someone more than just me." I nodded, understanding more than he realized. "And how does she make you feel that I don't?" I pressed gently. "It's not about you," he said quickly. "You've always been amazing, Natalie. It's me. I lost something along the way." I leaned back in my chair, letting his words sink in. "So you don't want to leave me," I stated. "No," he exclaimed, almost panicked. "I don't want that. I never wanted that." "Then why didn't you tell me how you felt?" I asked, my voice softening. We could have worked through it together. James sighed, running a hand through his hair. I didn't know how, and honestly, I didn't think you'd understand. I smiled faintly. You'd be surprised. I understand more than you think, James. His eyes searched mine, confusion flickering across his face. What do you mean? He asked cautiously. I mean, I've seen you happier lately, I said. And I realized that maybe this isn't entirely bad. James stared at me, stunned. You're saying, you're okay with this? His voice was barely a whisper. I don't know if okay is the right word, I admitted, but it's made me see you in a different light. And maybe, I continued, this is something we can explore together, if we're honest about it. James leaned forward, his face filled with a mix of shock and curiosity. Are you serious? He asked. Yes, I said firmly, but only if we set boundaries and keep communication open. For the first time in weeks, James smiled, a genuine smile that made my heart flutter. Okay, he said quietly, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out together. We spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking for the first time in what felt like years. James opened up about his insecurities, his need to feel desired, and the excitement he had found in the affair. I listened, not with judgment, but with curiosity. For the first time, I felt like I truly understood him. As strange as it seemed, his honesty brought us closer. It was as if the walls we had built around ourselves were finally coming down. In the days that followed, we began exploring this new understanding of our relationship. James introduced me to her Sophia. It was awkward at first, but she was kind and surprisingly open. We sat together at a coffee shop, the three of us, discussing what this arrangement meant and what it didn't. I don't want to ruin your marriage, Sophia said sincerely, her gaze shifting between James and me. You're not, I assured her. If anything, you've helped us see things about ourselves we were too afraid to face. The conversation was surreal, but it was also honest. For the first time, I felt a sense of control over my life. Over the next few weeks, we established clear boundaries, rules that would protect our relationship and our sanity. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of jealousy, moments of doubt, but we faced them together. I began to see James in a new light. The spark I had seen in him with Sophia ignited something in us as well. Our intimacy grew, not just physically, but emotionally. We were more honest with each other than we had ever been. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, James took my hand. Thank you, he said softly. For what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. For understanding me, for giving this a chance. His words melted something inside me. We're in this together, I said. Always. As unconventional as our journey had become, it brought us closer than I ever thought possible. I learned that love isn't always black and white. Sometimes it's messy and complicated, but that doesn't make it any less real. And while our story was far from typical, it was ours. And for the first time in years, that felt enough. Over time, our arrangement became a part of our lives, though it wasn't something we openly shared with others. James and I discovered a renewed passion for each other. It was as if we were rediscovering what made us fall in love. But with every high came moments of doubt. There were nights when I questioned if I could truly handle this. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in the bedroom, overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. James walked in and saw the tears in my eyes. Natalie, what's wrong? He asked, sitting beside me. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, I admitted. Some days it feels like too much. He took my hands in his gaze steady. You're the strongest person I know, he said, and we'll face this together. His reassurance was what I needed. It reminded me that we were a team, even in the face of uncertainty. As time went on, I grew more confident in our arrangement. I even started to form a friendship with Sophia. She and I had an understanding, one built on mutual respect and a shared love for James. It was unconventional, yes, but it worked for us. And in some strange way, it made us all stronger. Then, one day, everything changed. Sophia came to me, her face pale and her hands trembling. Natalie, we need to talk, she said, her voice shaky. I think I've developed feelings, real feelings. Her confession hit me like a wave. I had always assumed she knew the boundaries, but now those lines were blurred. I took a deep breath, trying to process her words. "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. "I think I'm in love with James," she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "And I don't know what to do." The room felt heavy with tension. I realized this was a moment that could either strengthen or shatter everything. "I need some time to think about this," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "We all need to talk." Later that evening, I sat down with James and shared what Sophia had told me. His face fell. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I didn't want anyone to get hurt." "I know," I replied, "but we need to address this honestly or it will destroy everything we've built." The three of us met the next day, each of us carrying the weight of unspoken emotions. Sophia apologized for crossing boundaries, but her feelings couldn't simply be erased. In that moment, I had to make a choice to let go of this arrangement or find a way to move forward. "Love is complicated," I said finally, "but we can't let it consume us. We have to be clear about what we want." Sophia agreed to step back, acknowledging that her feelings made it impossible to continue. It was painful, but necessary. And in the aftermath, James and I found ourselves closer than ever. The experience taught us that love is messy, but it's also resilient. It can survive, even thrive, if nurtured with honesty. And while our journey was far from conventional, it was uniquely ours, a story of love, mistakes, and growth. As the weeks went by, life began to feel normal again, at least our version of normal. James and I focused on rebuilding the foundation of our marriage, leaning on the lessons we had learned. We talked more openly, shared our fears and dreams, and rediscovered the spark that had brought us together. One evening, as we sat on the patio watching the sunset, James turned to me with a soft smile. "I never thought we'd come out of this stronger," he admitted. "But here we are." "Neither did I replied, taking his hand in mine. "But sometimes the hardest paths lead to the best places." Our journey hadn't been easy. It had been filled with mistakes, heartache, and moments of doubt. But through it all, we had found a deeper connection, a love that was more honest and more resilient. As time passed, Sophia became a distant memory. She moved on, finding her own path to happiness. I wished her well, grateful for the role she had played in helping James and me confront our own truths. Years later, as I look back on everything, I see it all as part of our story, a story of growth and redemption. James and I aren't perfect. We never will be. But we've learned to embrace the imperfections, both in ourselves and in each other. To anyone listening, I hope our story reminds you that love isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about choosing each other even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because love, real love, is messy and complicated, but it's also beautiful and worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to my story. It's one of mistakes, forgiveness, and hope, and it's far from over. As James and I continue to write our next chapters, I hope you'll find the courage to write yours too. Because no matter where you are, it's never too late to start again. And it's never too late to love. Even as life continued, I realized that love is a constant work in progress, a journey, not a destination. James and I began to explore new ways to keep our relationship alive, to nurture the bond we had rebuilt. We started traveling together, revisiting places we had dreamed of but never dared to explore as a couple. In those moments, surrounded by breathtaking landscapes and new experiences, we rediscovered our love for adventure. It wasn't just the big trips that mattered. It was the little things, the way he made me laugh, the way we held hands. We made a promise to each other to always be honest, to communicate openly, and to never take each other for granted. One evening, as we sat by the fire in our living room, James took out an old photo album. "Do you remember this?" he asked, pointing to a picture of us from our early days. We were smiling, carefree. "I do," I said, smiling. "We had no idea what was ahead of us, did we?" He chuckled softly. "No, we didn't," he admitted, "but I wouldn't change a thing. Every challenge brought us here." His words stayed with me. They were a reminder that even the hardest times had shaped our journey. As I sit here now writing these words, I feel a deep sense of gratitude for the pain, the lessons, and the love. Our story isn't conventional and it's far from perfect, but it's ours, and that's all that matters. To anyone listening, know this: love is worth fighting for, but it's also worth growing for. Because true love isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning from them and moving forward together. So here's to second chances, to resilience, and to the stories that shape us into who we're meant to be. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. It's not the end, it's just another chapter in an ever-evolving story. And with every new day, I look forward to the chapters yet to come. This is our story, and it's far from over. Even as I close this chapter, I know there will always be new challenges, new lessons, and new joys. James and I continue to grow, not just as a couple, but as individuals who support and uplift each other. There are still moments of doubt, of struggle, but we face them together, hand in hand. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that love evolves. It's not static, and it requires care and attention. Looking back, I see that our darkest moments were also the moments that taught us how to truly love. It's easy to love someone when things are perfect. The real challenge is loving through the imperfections. And in those imperfections, I found beauty and understanding that love is as much about forgiveness as it is about passion. Now, as we create new memories, I hold on to the hope that our story will inspire others to persevere, to find strength in vulnerability, to seek connection and honesty, and to cherish the moments that matter most. Because in the end, it's not about how the story begins, it's about how it continues and grows. And as long as we have each other, I know our story will always have hope, love, and resilience at its heart. So here's to the journey ahead, to the love we share, and to the stories yet to be written. Thank you for listening to our journey. May it remind you that no matter what, love can always find its way. As I close this chapter of our lives, I feel a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we've shared. Our story is one of imperfection, resilience, and growth, a testament to the power of love and understanding. Through every challenge, we found a way to come back to each other, stronger and more connected. This isn't the end of our story. It's just another chapter in a book filled with love, mistakes, and redemption. And as we look forward to the future, I hold on to the hope that our love will continue to grow and evolve. To anyone listening, thank you for being a part of this journey. I hope our story inspires you to embrace your own, because no matter where you are, there's always a way forward, always a chance to rewrite your story. So here's to love, to growth, and to the endless possibilities that life has to offer. Thank you for listening, and may your own journey be filled with hope, courage, and love. This is not the end, just the beginning of another beautiful chapter. Goodbye and take care.